Go ahead.
Good evening. Many a times we come across pictures that we have become so conditioned to that we don't pay any attention to them. Pictures like this. In fact, we treat him as an inconvenience during certain times. But in a country where a third of your population is living below the poverty line, then he is not an inconvenience. And we read a case that deals with the solution to this problem, microfinance. But the solution itself was plagued by a lot of other problems. The case had two sides. The MFIs, the microfinance institutes, well, they were giving out loans during the wrong time of the farming season. And on the other side, you have the clients who, well, let's say some of whom were completely oblivious to the fact of the financial sector. And those who knew, well, they were sending out complaints of high installment plans and high interest rate and whatnot. So we dug deeper. We found out that the MFIs, well, they are suffering from low absolute profit. Their interest rates are high, but the profits are low. And there are reputational issues because if they do something wrong, there will be a massacre of their reputation. And this is where the large banks are discouraged to enter. And their clients, well, they're selling products that are saturated in the market. And there's a weak coordination between the NGOs and the MFIs. As for the client side of the story, well, they are suffering from an information gap, which is posed because of the literacy problem that we have in this country, and because of the low exposure to the financial sector. And they're living in a vicious cycle where they use loans where they use one loan to pay off another loan. So if you compile it to the current scenario, you'll see that there are almost 700 institutes with 30 million recipients transacting over 200 billion in loans. The core problem lies in the asymmetric information. The two sides of the story, the MFIs and the clients, are not well connected now. So we have certain solutions for this.
Now, how we can approach this into one of two ways. The first one is following the existing model. We just follow whatever is happening right now. The advantage of it is that we let the market forces decide the fate of the model. But the drawback, the disadvantage is that the lack of accessing finance still remains. The model still hasn't reached its goals, and the problem of scaling up, where the unserved market still hasn't been reached by the model. And the next way we can approach this is using technology to bridge the gap. The advantage is that we already have a structure. Using technology aligns with A2I's goals, and it's easily scalable. You can start with a small village and reach the largest of cities. The disadvantage is the literacy rate. Some people may not understand it, and awareness creation. We need to market very well, so that we can create enough awareness for it. Moving on, we have developed models similar to what Bcash uses, using USSD codes. You dial a number, and then you get a menu where they tell you which MFI is closest to you, what's the eligibility, and based on your eligibility, which MFI is more suitable for you, and then you can get information regarding personal financing itself. Now, how do we go about this?
Right, so when you look at our plan of action, we're having a three-pronged approach to our problem. First of all, policy, institution, and infrastructure. Now, when it comes to our policy, we must understand that our financial system does not include the BOP market, which is, by the way, huge. So we are proposing an all-inclusive financial system where the MFIs will look into the BOP market and having a BOP-friendly policy from the government side. By having a friendly policy towards the BOP market, what will happen is that the financial institutions will be encouraged to go towards the market, reach out to them, and communicate the packages they have. By that, they're lowering the gap between the two parties. Now, addressing seasonal loans was a major factor in the case given. Now, in the MRA, we must understand why is there a gap? Because the MFIs can't reach out to the consumer market or the target market there. Now, the MRA, that's the Microcredit Regulatory Authority, must take a proactive action into communicating further with the people who are untapped. Now, when it comes to institution, we must increase the effectiveness of the MRA, because we must understand while the MFIs are communicating, they're trying their best, the MRA has a far better reach than the MFIs. And by encouraging that, taking a proactive stance, the MFIs will be encouraged to take a further better stance as well. Now the Big Four. Why is the Big Four there? What we must understand is the MFI industry is being led by the four big MFIs. That is BRAC, Grameen Bank, ASA, and Bureau. Now the problem with this is while they're leading and they have done a lot of commendable work, competition makes it better. Competition will help force them to go reach out to the people who have not been served yet. If we keep them in the reserve state they are, what will happen is that they'll be happy with the people they're reaching right now. Now, infrastructure. Like Najib proposed, the platform we gave, the idea, technology, first of all, shapes the way we live, and technology, second of all, aligns with the goal of digital Bangladesh. Now, technology is something we really want to have involved into our system, and that's what we gave examples of. We'll look into further innovations if there is. The social mobilization is the second factor that's very important. Why? Because it will do what BTL marketing does. By partnering up with strategic alliances and partners, what will happen is that they will go to the people who are not being served and talk about one, our products, two, the MFI's products, the benefits of the products, three, how they can come closer to the MFIs, and obviously promoting the platform we have proposed. What happens after they do the promotion is that the people who want the funding and the people who are giving the funding will come closer, closing the gap further. Now, while we looked at social mobilization, we want to take it a step further. How? By partnership with quasi-institutes. Now, what are quasi-institutes? These are semi-formal or non-formal institutes that are working in the deep regions in Bangladesh. Now, what will happen is, one, partnering up with them will allow us to go reach out to the unbanked and unserved market. This will increase the, increase the reach into the BOP market that's lying there untapped. Second, it will help us understand the market better. As you can see, the problem is a lot of products are not designed for the lower, ultra-poor people. By partnering with the quasi-institutes, we'll get feedback and information regarding those ultra-poor segments, and we'll make products specifically designed for them. Now, what's our long-term plan? Our long-term plan is the inclusion of micro-insurance, which will fall under the microfinance system, product based on green micro project. Now, this is important because Bangladesh is facing a lot of energy crisis outside of Dhaka city. Now, what will happen is by funding those green projects that there are, helping them run green projects, it will also provide, one, their living, and two, the energy they require to have a better standard of living. Three, broader microfinancial system. Now, the broader microfinancial system helps us enable to design products for everything else. Now, the fourth point is also important because value chain addition. What do I mean by it? What do I mean is that currently there are only two types of broadly used microfinance, microcredit and SELs. Now, what we can do is we can have products designed for other additions as well, where their specific needs are met, and better, more, they'll have a living where it will increase the standard of living. So how do we monitor and evaluate? One, periodic surveys by MRA, application rates, whether the MFIs are having an increased application rates for their packages. Individual cases of solvency, we'll look as to whether the solvency has increased in the individual manner, and the BBS household income will allow us to see whether the market as a whole has increased in terms of income.
And that brings us to the question, actually have you addressed it? Have you bridged the gap? So think of yourself as a recipient and think of a provider. So the problem was the recipient was not aware of all the offerings the provider had. And the provider was not at all times aware of the seasonality of loans. So what we did was we introduced social mobilization to the whole scene. Social mobilization went to these recipients, made them aware. We introduced the technological platform in order to connect with them. And at the end of the day, we partnered up with these quasi-institutes to serve these unserved markets. Thank you so much. That's a member.
Yeah, thank you for good analysis, for the good presentation. But thing is that you wanted to introduce the technology. Okay, technology. Things is that you know that people who are seeking microfinance, that they are very poor people.
Yes.
And Okay, most of the time, how do all of them can use the technology and mobile and other things?
The system is very much similar to what Bikash does. You have your phone with you. You don't have to know how to use it. You can go to your nearest UISC, and the person over there, he will be trained enough to let you use the service.
But have you considered all types of poor people who are living in the remote? You know that in the ICT ranking, the Bangladesh's position is a bit lower because of the connectivity.
So we
most
looked
of the
at
poor
the-
people don't use
So
such type of
so
system.
for that, we use the idea of what UNICEF does, social mobilization. They actually used it to eradicate Ebola to some extent in countries in Africa. So what I'm doing is I'm actually partnering up with grassroots organizations in remote parts of Bangladesh, and they're actually going into households to somehow give them the news of what are the options from these MFIs. And even if those people do not have phones, they could easily contact with these strategic alliances in order to convey the information to these MFIs.
We checked the recent number of mobile subscribers in Bangladesh. It came around
13 crore.
13 crore. 13 crore out of 16. So we have 13 crore people who are subscribed to cellular services. And this, that whatever we suggested, uses very rudimentary technology, USSD. It's available in feature phones. You don't need a smartphone to access the system.
It's the same as checking for the balance, or the same as Bcash, because most of the Bcash's market is actually located in those rural areas. That's their main segment.
You were also thinking about the value chain and then marketing things, but thing is that the people who are seeking microfinance, these people are a bit scattered, and then people are interested in cultivating in different things. But okay, if people cultivate one type of vegetable, but those people are scattered, not living in one particular place. So how you will manage all this scattered place to market the particular vegetable or particular rice or particular crop?
So it's true that they're all scattered, and it's also true that not every vegetable will grow at the same, all parts of the country. Something that will grow in the north will not obviously work out as well in the south for the farmers.
What will be the system?
And so that's where we promote the social mobilization and also partnership with quasi-institutes. What will they do is, there will be individuals going to household by household and talking about the microfinance packages that MFIs have, bringing them closer to the platform so that the information gap closes. Our objective at the end of the day was to close that information gap. And I think by having the social mobilization initiative, that will allow to close that gap. And while, as you said, that what if they're very scattered? That's where the quasi-institutes come in. Quasi-institutes are very informal, small institutes that are working in very remote areas in Bangladesh. And so what will happen is that by partnering with them, they'll take our information and reach out to the people in the remote areas and give it to them. And if they have any feedback or any query, they can ask the people of the quasi-institutes. And they can also, if the quasi-institute has I don't know what the package is entirely, they can also use the platform to communicate with the MFIs so that they can take the information and give it to the remote people.
So to add to it, we did not only think of it in terms of agriculture. We actually thought about it in terms of micro-recipients. So if we were to think about agriculture, I think that would be one of those problems that connecting people in different regions. But the thing about it was that when we looked into the number of MFIs, there are about 96 of them, so almost 700 of them. And they're scattered very much throughout the country. So I think that is where we thought that even if it's in the south or if it's in the north, somehow we'll be able to connect it. And since we'll be making sure that the government regulatory body for these microfinancial institutions are more cooperative and more proactive from now on, somehow we'll be able to bridge the gap that was once existing.
So if I add a little more, what happens when we looked at the data, what happened was that we saw that while microcredit is very famous among the rural people, ACL has a lot more popularity than the microcredit system. So what does ACL do? ACL promotes off-farm businesses and small businesses, like if I may say, mudir dokan, choto-kato dokan, or trading, sort of like that. So we can see that our platform will actually encourage them to do more about that. So since the trend is going that way, I think our platform will be able to reach every one of them.
You are going to add huge mobilization system, technology, and lots of research. So is this model going to be a bit expensive? What do you think?
So in terms of expense, since we had 2 hours, we did not really go into the financial nitty-gritty of things. But taking into account social mobilization, it's actually not a very expensive way of doing business. UNICEF has been doing it for a very long time. And some of these consumer-based movements or some of these awareness-based movements are very much dependent on in these third world countries on social mobilization. So in terms of that, we don't think that it's very expensive. And for the USSD, how much would it cost?
Sir, the USSD service that's out there, if you are, let's say, not partnered up with cellular companies, then you will have to pay for it. But if the government is on board, then it's actually free. It's free to access. And like they mentioned, the groups that we are partnering up with, the quasi-institutes, if we partner up with the right relevant quasi-institutes, then it will be aligned with their goals as well. So we are thinking about partnerships. So in that manner, the operational cost can be shared by the government and the institutes on that basis as well.
It's the same way health campaigns and health-related activities are communicated already.
Yeah.
Okay. Question number 1. Who are you guys, and that you are going to partner with mobile companies or MFIs? Are you guys the MFIs? Are you guys the government? Who are you actually?
We are consultants currently pitching the idea to A2I.
Alright. You are suggesting that the MFIs increase competitiveness or to induce competitiveness in the scenario. And you also mentioned in your analysis of the situation that MFIs are actually scared about their own reputation, that they don't want to create some bad word of mouth in the market, that they're charging a lot, but at the same time they're also concerned about that they're investing money in this, so they want to get some return out of it as well. So how are you balancing the competitiveness aspect of it along with the reputation, because you're going to the rural people and these guys are poor, so once you're targeting the mass, how are you going to justify to them that their potential loss in business or reputation? Both of them.
If we were to talk about first about the reputation, we actually saw it as a challenge for the bigger banks because they feel that when they do good for other people, it's obviously commercialized to the general public. But what happens is if they fall into some sort of even a scandal of the slightest manner, that would tarnish their reputation. It wasn't really for MFIs; it was for the larger commercial banks that do not feel inclined to provide finance.
It was a hindrance for the larger banks to enter into the MFIs.
So, in either case, how are you going to overcome that barrier? Are you going to, you're talking about bringing them into the whole competitive scenario, right? The larger banks, right?
No.
Okay.
It's not the larger banks.
We talked about the big four that are already in microfinance, and we talked about the small MFIs.
So you're just going to increase competitiveness among these.
MFIs.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.